Lithium refining, and why aren't people buying more electric cars in the US? Our impressions from a trip to Texas. We just finished a 10-day trip to Texas, Austin, Hill Country, Brownsville, SpaceX, and then San Antonio at the end, back to Austin. We chose to make it an educational trip, but also leisure trip. So fundamentally, what we're trying to achieve here is to get a sense for what's happening in the state of Texas as far as Tesla and Elon Musk is concerned. He moved his headquarters there. He has his most important companies there. He lives there. And Texas is definitely a state that is growing, that has a lot of potential, a very interesting state. Uh, on the other hand, though, one of the disappointing things about Texas is electric car adoption. Electric car adoption, I think, is very close to or highly correlated with prosperity, with forward-looking mentality. For example, the electric car adoption in China is very high because people are very positively, geared towards the future, and electric cars definitely are the future. And we didn't see that in Texas, so that was disappointing. We visited also the lithium refining factory that Tesla is building outside of Corpus Cristi. And even though that's a small part of the Tesla business, most people don't even know it. We think here at Orange Capital Partners that it's an incredibly important piece of the puzzle, and it's very impressive that Tesla is actually doing this. And the reason lithium refining is so key is because it shows two things. One is Tesla is absolutely capable of manufacturing anything it needs to do at any scale. And that is a skill that, particularly in the US, is being neglected. Even in China, we've heard people say manufacturing is not the issue. What you need to do is, X, Y, Z. In other words, people are neglecting the ability to manufacture at scale. And we at Orange Capital Partners don't think that that is the right way to look at things. We believe that manufacturing in a vertically integrated business is actually fundamentally the most important factor of wealth creation. This is not even a podcast. It's January 16, 2025. This is Crimdelco. For the year, we're down 2.4%. The market is up 1.2, around performing by 3.6%. So a trip to Texas, we would like to narrow it down to really two fundamental questions. One is, why aren't people adopting more electric cars, particularly in a state like Texas? And second, the importance of vertical integration for the company of the future. Let's start with the bad news. The electric car adoption that we saw in Texas was underwhelming. We thought that we'd see a lot more Teslas in Austin. We thought we'd see a lot more Teslas everywhere else, and we didn't. In fact, other than in Austin, actually, where there's still a decent amount of Teslas, there aren't that many Teslas outside of Austin. And, of course, Brownsville, SpaceX is super concentrated. And you see a lot of Cybertrucks there, actually, because the Cybertruck is the vehicle of operations at SpaceX. But other than that, it's definitely disappointing. Now, what does that tell us about the United States? What does it tell us about the state of Texas? What does that tell us about the mentality of the people in Texas? On the one hand, it's the maker state. Yes, people want to create in Texas. They want to take risks. They want to do things. A lot of good things came out of Texas. Whole Foods. Here we have chip manufacturing, computers, Dell, a lot of interesting things. But fundamentally, it's a very conservative state. So people actually are not very open-minded. They are stuck in their old ways, and the electric car adoption is a clear corollary of that. Now, how is this going to change? Like, can we actually, as a society here in the United States, survive if we continue with this head in the sand, driving gasoline-powered cars mentality? Now, some people might say, look, why are you so picky about which car people drive? It doesn't really matter. Well, it does. I'm not even too concerned about the brands. It's more about the symbol that if somebody still buys a gasoline-powered car in this day and age, which is an inferior product, higher price, less comfort, dirty, unhealthy, all kinds of things. It shows me that there is a fundamental neglect of adaptation to the future. And while that might be temporary a problem for Tesla, we believe that in the long term, it will pan itself out because in the end, what Tesla is optimizing for, Tesla is pursuing a goal in the car business. They're not producing products. They're pursuing a goal, and the goal is low cost, high comfort, high safety transportation. That's the goal that Tesla is pursuing. So with their products and their technology, they have the ingredients, the resources necessary to actually achieve that goal. And that's why we think Tesla will win in the long term and actually have a large market share of miles driven in not just in the US, but around the world. That's why we are investors in Tesla. However, culturally, the low percentage of electric car adoption around the United States, with a few pockets of exceptions, one being California, Florida, places like that, there is a clear neglect of potentiality. There's a clear neglect. There's a reluctance to jump into the future. And I think the United States is suffering from sclerosis, which I think comes from the fact that there's a lot of free money around and that the Fed is printing money and the government is wasting a lot of money, and we have these horrible, horrible ideas of taxing wealth. And we're kind of creeping into a socialist mentality where second best is good enough, where being the best is being frowned upon socially, and being a small person is actually small, not physically, but sort of what in an achievement type of way is actually virtue. So we're slipping into this socialist mentality, and that is very dangerous. We can see it even in the state of Texas, and it's actually almost inverse, where you might think that politically California is totally in shambles, but the mentality of the people here still is incredibly positive. That's why we still live in California, and Texas being on the political front very positive, very pro technology. Actually, fundamentally, the people in Texas, the actual let's say the incumbents are conservative, low risk, backward mentality. That's disappointing. Now, again, we believe that in the long run, low cost, high comfort, high safety type transportation, which is what Tesla is delivering, will win. But it's nevertheless a question we just ask ourselves during this trip. The reason we're not concerned is, again, because the product will follow the goal, and the goal is something that we believe will eventually penetrate throughout society. Now, on the positive side, what we noticed on this trip, something that I think you need to see in order to believe, is that, or internalize, maybe that's the right word, is that the size of a factory gives you a much better sense for the difficulty and the extreme achievement that a company like Tesla is delivering, and SpaceX, and many others, by the way. But you can talk so much about data centers and Colossus and the Gigafactory and the SpaceX factory. Once you see these things physically, you internalize the magnitude and the importance of manufacturing. And I think that's the key point here. The key word is manufacturing. The ability to manufacture at scale and iterate across the value chain on the manufacturing side, and of course also on the business side, on the intelligence side. It's not just manufacturing, but manufacturing is a key advantage that any company will have in the future, because we are going to have to produce things to solve some of the biggest problems, that is defense, transportation, and energy. Those are the three key problems that we think can only be solved with scale manufacturing, defense being, obviously the arsenal of freedom tour by Secretary of War Hegseth, and many other endeavors by the Secretary of Department of War are clear testimony of the importance of manufacturing for defense. And without defense, we have nothing. We don't have borders, we don't have a country, we don't have a legal system, we have nothing without defense. So that's number one. Transportation is the kind of product where there's infinite demand for transportation. I think that's probably worth its episode alone just to talk about that particular aspect. But there's infinite demand for transportation. Let's leave it at that. So if we can manufacture at scale more, let's say, cybercabs at lower cost and deliver the goal, which is again the mission of Tesla in the car business in particular, is to deliver low cost, high comfort, and high safety transportation miles. That's what Tesla is selling. Now, having said that, the key of manufacturing is the ability to quickly build an infrastructure that helps you build what you need to build. So build the machine that builds the machine. And that's where Tesla excels. We saw the Giga factory, we saw the SpaceX factory, and we saw the lithium refining. And I think I want to say a few words about the lithium refining. Lithium refining it's outside of Corpus Cristi. It's a new factory just being commissioned for production this year. It's been in the production for it's been in construction for about 2.5 years. Why is that so important? Well, first, what is lithium refining exactly? Well, lithium is being used in electric car batteries and also electric storage batteries. Energy storage batteries. Many other reasons, many other applications, iPhone, laptop, but the bulk of the volumes are going into cars and increasingly also into the batteries for electric storage. Now, you can get lithium from many different sources, rocks all over the world. The bottleneck is the processing and refining, which is turning that rocky lithium into electric car grade lithium. And that is a process that currently is fully controlled by China because it's a very dirty process. What Tesla has done is try to combine. They haven't really reinvented the wheel. I recommend a recent video by the limiting factor. The limiting factor, I forgot his name, Jordan Hassegi. Shout out to him. He made actually a video about this, and the conclusion of the video is that Tesla hasn't really sort of reinvented the wheel here, but they've used available technologies and combined them, and they're taking a risk here. They're taking a risk. A long story short, they want to have a lower cost and higher environmentally friendly process in lithium refining than what the Chinese are doing. Maybe right now that's a risk. Hopefully in the future, with scale and right slow application, the cost can come down and we can have an environmentally more sustainable lithium refining business fully based in the US. That gives us the ability to have lower cost and also independence of China. And again, lower cost is very important because a lot of the advantages of the Chinese manufacturers are because they're being subsidized indirectly with things like lithium refining, which is very dirty and therefore cheaper and things like that. And if we can onshore a lot of that process here in the United States, we have a much better chance to compete globally, not just with China, but in particular with China. So I think manufacturing is being still underestimated, even though everybody's talking about it. We can see it here, in Silicon Valley, everybody talks about it, but nobody really does it. I mean, to be fair, some people are like Andreessen Horowitz is investing in American Dynamism, but the big bulk of their money is still going into companies like OpenAI and stuff like that. So I think hardware is hard, manufacturing is hard, but it's the gateway towards wealth creation in the second part of the first half of the century. Because with manufacturing and intelligence, if we combine those two, right, we have manufacturing and intelligence equals robotics. And robotics on wheels or legs or with wings, doesn't matter. You can just imagine how much wealth creation there could be if we can combine those things. But in order to apply intelligence at scale, to have real social, to move the needle socially and economically, you need scale, and for that you need manufacturing capacity. So this trip to Texas has really given us that insight into how important that is. Once you see it with your own eyes, that's when you can feel that's when you can really internalize how important manufacturing is. So very important. This is a side note here. I would recommend anybody, particularly young people who study STEM fields at university, to go and visit those factories, go intern with those factories, regardless of what your goals are, whether you want to do science, whether you want to do engineering, whether you want to work in large companies, small companies, it doesn't matter. Go into work on these large projects, have a sense for what it actually means to translate equations into products and services. Now, again, to summarize, this trip to Texas has really opened our eyes to two things. One is that the world is kind of upside down when it comes to the political and social structure of Texas versus California. California is politically rotten, but the spirit of California is still incredibly positive, and you can see that with the electric car adoption. Electric car adoption is a direct correlation with progress, openness, and in Texas, although politically the state is much healthier than California, the people aren't adopting electric cars. We didn't see enough of it. Maybe it's going to come. The young people, the people that moved there from California because of the political disaster here. Maybe Texas will change, but currently the demographics of Texas are, in my opinion, it's a politically well run. It reminds me a bit of Switzerland. Politically well run, very little corruption, but the mindset of the people is narrow-minded, low risk, low innovation, and not too much progress. And Texas is very similar, disappointingly similar. On the positive side, though, we've seen many, many things, big manufacturing processes being built or already have been built. SpaceX is there, Tesla is there, the lithium factory, all of these things, the iteration, which we can't emphasize enough how important it is to be vertically integrated. Because this is the last thing I want to say today. When it comes to vertical integration, as an investor, you don't have a choice here. This is not something where I like this company because they're vertically integrated, but it's okay. I also don't mind investing in this company. Let's say Google is not vertically integrated. They'll be fine because you can just buy stuff. Vertical integration is not a choice. It's a necessity. It's like Jim McKelvey said in his excellent book, The Innovation Stack, innovating around the value chain is not something you choose to do. You have to do. And the reason you have to do it is because, and this is from an essay that we wrote about 2.5 years ago, it's because when the productivity delta between what your company is doing and a potential supplier is very high, you have to actually internalize that supply. In other words, when you have, let's say, when Tesla is buying GPUs from NVIDIA, it's because NVIDIA is as productive, if not more, than Tesla. So that's fine. But Tesla cannot buy other, technologies or products from companies that are less productive. For example, the processed lithium, or the batteries. Maybe some battery capacity they can buy from Cattle because they're as productive as Tesla. But a lot of stuff they can't buy because they're much more productive than the supplier, and that creates a delta that can only be overcome with vertical integration. So to summarize, our trip to Tesla has opened our eyes to the lack of electric car adoption in Texas, which is a concern, but also given us a lot of hope, seeing all the manufacturing capacity that Tesla is building in Texas and showing us that this is the right way for wealth creation. Thank you.